Sultan is very proud of himself, and he is a complete idiot. Monster's not amused by this. Sultan decided that the cat bed was not good enough to be inside. He wanted to be under it. She is not amused and keeps attacking him for reasons I cannot comprehend. Such is life, I guess. When I'm not writing stories, I figured I'd give you guys a little bit of a glimpse into the other things I do. This is one of my spinning wheels. This is my electric eel nano. It's a little electric spinning wheel that sits on my desk. Right now, I'm spinning linen, which is this. This is flax. It's been combed and prepared and is going to be made into linen. Like this right here. This is a single ply linen that I'm going to be plying back on itself. That turns into this. As you can see, this is the linen yarn that I've created, and I'm going to be weaving a piece of cloth out of this and doing embroidery on it. The embroidery is going to be done in this over here. This is silk that hasn't been spun yet. I'm going to be making my embroidery thread out of it. It's going to be dyed by a friend of mine using mushrooms and lichen. It's going to be a lot of fun. And over here is some wool. Guess what time it is? It's Salty Editor time! Yes, it is. I was in a writing group, as I often am, and somebody was talking about how they can't get any traffic to their blog and nobody comes to visit them and they can't come up with content. So I made the mistake of saying, well, who's your target audience? Who are we trying to convince here? What are you looking for? And they said very officiously that their book is for everybody. Now, this is a Christian writing group, so I'm not going to get into the details, but they were very upset and kind of offended at the idea that their book isn't for literally everybody. And that not literally everybody will want to read or need it. And the reality is here that your book is actually for someone. Now, this individual in question, their book is obviously for somebody who's either open to Christianity or is already Christian, because somebody who's really militantly atheist or an extremely devout Muslim probably not going to want to read a book that's really hard pushing the line of Christianity. Not going to be their thing. Secondly, they're going to have to read in English, because the book was written in English. Who's surprised? Thirdly, this person's going to have to read at an adult level, because it's a book that's written for adults, theoretically. But they wanted to not piss off the teenagers or denigrate the adults by talking about how it's too lowbrow for them. These kinds of assessments are really important when you're talking about writing your book. You need to know who you're writing for. My novel, Fallen, as you can see on the screen behind me, there we go, is for people who are probably in their 30s-ish, liked Supernatural, enjoyed the TV show Lucifer, were into Netflix's Bright, or at least the concept thereof, even if they didn't like the execution, and a number of other pieces of urban fantasy like that. Maybe fans of Jim Butcher. I know who my target market is. I know who wants to buy my book. It's not going to be literally everyone. As much as I really wish everybody would like my book, it's not going to be for everyone. And that's okay. I have a target market. That target market is not tiny. It's in fact quite gigantic. As such, I know what those people want to see. I know the content they want to read. And that's what I put on my blog and in my newsletter, because I know who I'm marketing to. As such, you should do the same with your book. Think about who you're marketing to. Who wants to read your content? Who wants to identify with the things your book is about? Are they going to be interested in those things? How do you reach those people? Where do they hang out? And where do they get their information from? Target those things. Also, Monster Cat. Monster says hi. My desk is a disaster because I'm doing cross-stitch right now. That is the kind of thing you really need to think about. If you say your book is marketed to everybody, you're wrong. And also, that means you're marketing to nobody. You're just screaming into the void and hoping somebody responds, which means that you're not going to get a lot of sales. Think about who you want to sell to, target that market, and be honest with yourself about it. It's okay. And now, A palate cleanse. Look how cute her toes are. Her toes have no business being that cute. I wish I had that life. Or this one. I'm so jealous of my cats. It's good to be the cat.
Let's go!
Remember, folks, genres are just marketing tools. I came across this on social media today where there was a big firestorm argument about whether or not romance has to have a happily ever after ending. In the genre, it does. Not all romances have to be happy. However, if you're trying to write the romance genre, the happily ever after ending is kind of a requirement. Without it, you're going to really upset the romance crew, so don't do it. Now, with that said, you can write whatever you want, just remember that your genre is a marketing tool. Use it like that. If you're trying to market your book as horror and nothing scary happens, you've made a terrible mistake. One you should probably reconsider making. So, just for reference, don't get too hung up about whether or not your genre is what you expect, or don't get too hung up on your genre until it's time to actually think about that. Today you get not only salty editor, but salty martial artist. I saw somebody in a writing group ask a question about whether or not a woman could take a man in a fight, and whether or not a man should be afraid of women, and whether or not women could reasonably win in any kind of physical conflict. He's trying to make his story realistic. He wants the female character to win, but he was like, how do I make this realistic? And I was like, So one thing I don't talk about a lot on this channel is that I have been doing martial arts since I could walk. So about 34 years now. I started in Wei Chi and Aikido. I've done Aikijujutsu, I've done Kempo, I've done Kung Fu, I have done a little bit of Tai Chi, I did a lot of Japanese sword arts of various different flavors, and now I do European fencing. What I'm telling you about all of this is that I'm very good at stabbing people. And I regularly fight men who are bigger and taller than me. Now, you might not be able to tell on TikTok, but I am 5'9" and currently weigh about 180 pounds, a little bit under that. And I regularly fight guys who are over 6 feet and beat the crap out of them because I'm trained better than they are. I have a female friend of mine who is 5 feet even, and she is just a little elf of a woman, and she's vicious. She's the scariest fighter I know. Insta-dead. Fantastic. I love fighting her. So, if you're worried about whether or not a man and a woman can fight and the woman could potentially win, yes, the women could absolutely kick the butt of the man. The only thing that really matters when it comes to physical combat is training. If one of you is trained better than the other, the person with the better training is more likely to win. That's the entire thing. That's as far as it goes, there's nothing more. Training wins. Somebody who's not trained might get lucky, and that absolutely can happen, but don't go into a fight scene assuming that the man has any kind of significant advantage over a woman, because unless it's an arm wrestling contest, and even then, there isn't really that much of a difference when it comes to fighting men and women. There are some minor physical differences. Women tend to have a lower center of gravity, for example, a lot of the time because of the way our bodies are built. That's a thing. But it's not really that big a difference, and when it comes to throwing punches, I mean, it's going to come down to whether or not you know the style of the person you're facing, whether they know your style, how well you know your style, how well they know their style, and whether or not who is armed and what they're armed with. Those are really more the deciding factors than whether or not somebody is male or female, or non-binary, or whatever it is, because honestly, most of that doesn't make any kind of real, genuine impact on a fight. So if you're writing fight scenes, don't worry about whether or not the men or the women win as far as realism goes, because both are equally viable options. You can write your story how you want. Okay, so I want to address something that I've been seeing a lot of late in various different writing groups, more so than I used to, and that's people asking for free editing. they'll pop in and be like, hey, would someone be willing to read my novel and give me all of these different pieces of advice and also look at all my grammar and punctuation for free? And the answer to that is no, of course not. I'm not going to do that because that's what I do for my livelihood, so unless we're super duper close friends and it's like 1,000 words, no, I'm not going to do editing for free. I'm sorry. And even if we are super duper close friends, the people who are that close to me in my life wouldn't ask me to do something that I do for a living for free because they respect my time and my knowledge. Asking for free stuff like this is not a good look. If you want to do a critique swap with somebody where you are also going to be providing equal criticism on their manuscript, like reading through it like, hey, okay, so I've read through your manuscript, here's my thoughts, and have them do the same thing for you, fantastic. That is skill swapping, or trading, or barter, which is totally a fair system of things. I encourage people in writing groups to critique each other's stuff. I encourage people to learn by reading other authors' material and seeing what does and doesn't work for them. I participate in that. However, at no point am I bringing my editing expertise to the table and saying, all right, I've read your novel, here is my fully edited version of it for you for free, because that is not an okay, acceptable amount of labor. So when you're asking someone to do this kind of editing for you for free, let me just throw this out there. It takes me between 20 and 40 hours to go through a novel on average. We're not talking holy crap long or extremely tiny. An average novel. It takes me about that long, depending on the kind of editing and the shape it's in, to edit a novel. So asking somebody to do a full week worth of work for you for nothing, and I'm talking 8-hour days, so full 8-hour days worth of work for nothing for you, just a weirdo asking on the internet, and you have no idea what their credentials are, so you're not even sure if you're getting quality feedback because they might not know what they're talking about. It's not gonna work out well for you, man. Stop. I understand that editing is expensive, and if you cannot afford to hire an editor, which is a fair thing to say, there are ways to go about having that discourse. Like I said, do a critique swap. You know, put up little pieces and snippets, or hire an editor to do an assessment read, which is usually a lot less expensive, and you might get a bunch of useful advice out of it. There are ways, but stop asking people to do what I do for a living for free. It doesn't work. Just don't. Okay, friends, we need to have a talk. Today, I am extremely salty, but not about the usual kind of things. Today, I'm extremely salty because somebody in a writing group, where I probably should stop hanging out, was talking about how mentally ill people like to self-medicate, and what is a drug that her schizophrenic character could have slipped into her drink to get her addicted to drugs and start a spiral of self-medication and disaster in her life. That kind of plotline, not good. Please stop using it. Okay? Please. Mentally ill people don't spend our lives looking for drugs. Hi, I have mental problems. I have ADHD, PTSD, depression, anxiety, and probably autism, if I'm honest. All of those things together, I'm planning on taking medication for the ADHD, but not the rest of it, which isn't to say anything bad about people who do take medication for the rest of it. However, mental illness is not an immediate gateway to drug use. There are a lot of people fighting with all sorts of mental illnesses out there. And we deal with enough problems and enough stigmas that I really wish this plot idea would go away and stay gone. There are individuals who fall into that. That's absolutely a true statement. But it's not because somebody slipped something into their drink in a bar, alright? That's not how this works. People, generally speaking, get addicted to drugs the way anybody gets addicted to drugs. They're running away from problems, they're dealing with other issues in their life. I know, intimately, how the spiral of drug addiction and mental illness can go. My father was an addict. He was an alcoholic. He did other things, and I was there when it killed him. It is a disaster. I grew up with it. It's not the usual way of things. So please skip the whole, I want my character to get addicted to drugs, so I want somebody to slip something in her drink at a bar. That's misogynistic. It is horrible to mental illness, the mental illness community, and you shouldn't be using it. Don't. It's not a good look. There are ways that you can have a character who's dealing with mental illness end up on drugs, if that's really something you need to have happen. But do you need it to happen? Or do you just want to add drama and play into stereotypes that you think? Because this character was schizophrenic, and I'm willing to bet you money, dollars to donuts, that this author is probably going to write them like they have dissociative identity disorder. And most people, at least in my generation, schizophrenia and DID were the same thing when I was growing up. They've since been pulled apart into separate disorders, but I'm willing to bet this person is going to play a schizophrenic in the most milquetoast manner possible. Stop it. We are not the butt of your jokes. We are not your plot points.